Hey, welcome to Ed, a podcast about the teaching life. This is Check-In 38, and I'm your host, Shane Lawrence. Ed is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network powered by ATB. And this month, I am joined by Jeremy Cooper.
Hi there.
Thanks a lot. And Joe Reimer.
Hello.
And Shaun Smith.
Good morning.
And we are live at NCTCA 2019. Awesome, just like we rehearsed. Well done. All right, so this is a bit of a different show because we are live here at the CKUA building. Many thanks to Alberta Podcast Network, Karen Unland for getting us here. And so we're still going to have the regular show that we always have. We're going to start with wins and fails. We're going to be talking about professional development on our own time, personal PD, and then we'll be finishing out, as always, with our timeouts. And that's the point where they all say, oh, yeah, right, oops, what? Because they always forget. So let's start with some wins and fails. And I'd like to get some from the audience. And maybe, is there anyone out there, just a show of hands, who would like to share a win or a fail from their past month? We can do some demos first. Okay, we got at least 1, 2, 3. All right, good. And we got books to back that up. Oh, yeah, before we get going, I'll say thanks to the Dave Burgess Consulting Company for sending along some books that we get to give away today. I'm really excited about that. But let's do wins and fails. Does any of you gents want to go first? Because I actually have mine written down, so I am on fire. Oh, Joe.
Okay. I actually tend to repress my fails, so I think that's a failure. Because every time I come on, I always share a win. So I don't know what that says about me, but I would say I'm going to share a win anyway. Started a new position this year, and so when you come from a school where you know everybody and come into a school where you don't know anybody, I think, some teachers say, don't go into the staff room. It's just gossiping, blah. But I really advocate for going into the staff room, and for me, that's been a huge win this year. I make sure I get to the staff room as much as I can during lunch, and it's just really, over the course of the year, made me feel much more comfortable with the new staff, and so that's a huge win for me.
Well done, you're making friends.
Yeah.
We're proud of you.
Thank you.
Friends. So I'll follow that up. A couple of years ago, I switched from teaching into counseling. So I'm a high school counselor now. And repression actually can lead to depression, but repression of fails, nice defense strategy. Mm-hmm. I've found that embracing the fails is really... So I think when I come on, I usually share a fail. I kind of struggle for the wins. And my fail this time is in high school. The semester break is nothing like when I was teaching high school. And when you're teaching high school, especially with diploma courses, there's just this calm before the next storm. So I was like just getting ready for the last week of things to be really light and easy. And man, it was like an avalanche. I was standing at the bottom of the hill, and it's just like course changes and fail lists and meetings with parents. And it was just go, go, go. So when you underestimate that and then you get hit really hard, and I was like, okay, teachers convention, recover time. So my fail is like just misinterpreting what was going on, and I just got buried. But it's been a great transition, but there are fails all along the way as I get used to how things are going.
Are you going to the audience, or do you want to go to me?
Sure, let's go to the audience. We have someone who wants to share a win or a fail.
That's my segue.
All right. Karen will actually bring the mic to you, I think. She said she would do that, so not to put you on the spot, Karen. All right, and maybe give us your name before you start.
Peter McGuire, and I've dedicated myself to biking to school every day. I think the last time I took my car to school was in October, and so I bike to school every day. And the kids see me. I got my fat bike, like I'm the cool kid in the parking lot. But I was in my classroom the other day, and one of the class kids was like, "Well, why do you bike to school? Why didn't you just drive?" And I said, "Well, I didn't want to clean the snow off my car." And so this student said, "Well, you're just lazy." and so I was like, okay, but this other student beside him, he's not lazy. He biked to school. And then we got in a good discussion about energy use and things like that. So just them seeing me in the parking lot led into a discussion about how we get around and what energy we use. So
Did you bike this week?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
No problem.
Yeah.
For reference, it's what, about it's been about minus 30 in the morning?
60
Celsius. Oh. Any other wins and fails?
I want to talk about a fail I just recently had at my semester end.
Nice.
So I entered all my marks, everything But then you have those students who don't do anything. And so my impression was, okay, I'll just unenroll them from the class and be all good. Well, my administration came down hard on me, and it felt like it destroyed me because I had to enroll all these kids back in, do my power school and everything, and I had to have it done by the 31st. And they told me the 30th at 5 o'clock. And so I had a day to redo about 8 kids in my class and enter everything on Power School. My head literally blew up. And so, this is a nice break for me. And so, thank you very much.
Oh, I love hearing about fails. Well done. That's good.
I think, there's a lot more, collegiality in the fail side of things. It's like, okay, good. So not just me.
Yeah.
Right up here, Karen, on the front.
Thank you. I'm Phil Zinkin. I actually have the honor of working with Joe at our Drawson Junior and spending some time
in the staff room. Yeah.
It's a great place to be. I've been teaching kind of the same program now. It feels like for that 6 years. I've been teaching for 16, and I found myself in a bit of a rut. So we want to talk about a bit of a fail turning into a bit of a success, is that feeling of being in a rut. And I went and marked diploma exams and been doing some great PD with Brad Smilanich in our division recently. For those of you who are Edmonton area and St. Albert, you probably have come in contact with Brad at some point. So shout out to him. And he just keeps challenging me. And a lot of my colleagues have been challenging me at diploma marking. Why don't you try something new? And I even said to the 30-1s the other day, maybe we'll do a modern play that wasn't written in 1950. Let's see if we can give that a go. So this year it's going to be about learning with kids, and that's, and trying something new and sitting down and having that risk all over again, kind of like that first year teacher, and sitting down and saying, let's try this play. I've never taught it before. Let's see where we can go with it. And same with doing the serial podcast with the 30-2s. I've got all the materials. I've got the journals. I've got the transcripts. I've got all that stuff. And then you go, well, what do we do with it? And how are we going to make that work? And I think kind of sitting down with those kids and saying, I don't know where we're going, but let's take the journey together. It's been kind of a neat way of taking that rut and turning it into something positive. So we'll see where it goes. And maybe at the end of the semester, my administration will be sitting down and having a chat with me too. But we're going to have a little bit of fun along the way, I hope.
Well, at least we'd have another fail, right? So,
All right. Well, let's hear Shaun's inspiring win, because he always go, I went. You fed the pigeons, right? That's what we always like to say.
No, I actually appreciate the fails. I think if I can add 1.5 wins on this one.
Oh, there you go. Not just one.
One of the things that I find about this podcast and that you guys are now entering into is I always love coming to your room and being a part of this because it's very therapeutic. So you kind of go, that kid is only bad in my class. Oh no. And then you're like, no, actually they're just, that's kind of their trend line. And so I think it's pretty therapeutic to hear a struggle like admin coming down and the marks and all that kind of stuff. And it isn't just in my classroom that kids do nothing. So that's fantastic to actually hear. I mean, it's not like we're in misery together and let's all drown together. But I think there's something fairly therapeutic about that too. My win that I have though is I teach in the area of religion. Much of my classes are in religion, which if you know anything about that, is usually the most underserved, underskilled. There's a few things that are wrong with it. And so generally you get outright hostility in the classroom. And I have one class that the kids actually race me to the class. And then when they beat me, they let me know too. So it's kind of a cool thing because that class, when we give them freedom and actually allow them to think, which gets you in all kinds of trouble, but good trouble, they actually have a lot of really profound things to say. So that's sort of my win that I keep thinking back to, because I do have one class where if I ask a question, this sounds so hocus pocus like this actually exists, but we had this happen a few times this semester where every hand was up. Like, please, me? And again, that sounds like, wow, that guy's a jerk because he just shared a win.
I mean, I was thinking it.
Just
right?
give me my moment. That's my one moment that I would take away from that.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I have a win too. We're win heavy out here, fail heavy out there. We didn't orchestrate that, I promise. But my win came from just a student I have, and he's the kind of guy when he when there's a problem, is just like, I can't do this. He just falls over, just can't do anything. Like to the point where I teach computers, and he'll be sitting there at a computer that's not on, and he's like, I don't know what's wrong. Have you tried turning it on? No, I don't know. So, turn it on and walk away, and he's fine. So we're doing these self-directed projects where they can literally do essentially anything they want within, certain reasonable parameters. But he decided he wanted to do one of those little like boom tubes, like where you slide your phone in and then it just amplifies the sound out the sides. And just designed it, 3D printed it. The first time he designed it and printed it, I was like, this is going to come out really wrong. But I printed it anyway, and it was about 2 inches long, the whole thing. So I just kind of plunked it in his desk. I'm like, there you go. And to my surprise, like just really quietly in my email inbox, boop, there's the next one, the right size. I'm like, okay. So printed out that one. That one didn't work properly. So I just, boop, there you go. That's that one. And he just kept on going. He took it through 4 iterations until he finally got it right. And this is like a level of resilience I have not seen nor honestly really expected from him based on all his other behavior in class. So that was definitely a win for me. I just was like, yeah, this is awesome. And the thing works. You just slide your phone and it amplifies pretty well. So I was very pleased with that. And I also didn't break the 3D printer, which is a win because Aaron Camponi sitting there, who I work with, he knows that I like to break the 3D printer. So...
This episode happened because a lot of people helped us out, including Park Power. Park Power is owned by Chris Kozowski, who has a growing and well-deserved reputation for being a guy who cares. And if you're in the Edmonton area, you may have seen him around in his signature bow tie, supporting local causes and boosting local business. He walks that talk with his business, and it's why Park Power shares 10% of its profits with local charities. Current community partners include the Boys and Girls Club of Strathcona County, the Altview Foundation for Gender Variant and Sexual Minorities, the Festival Place Cultural Arts Foundation, Muscular Dystrophy Canada, the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, and the Saffron Centre, which supports those affected by sexual violence. When you sign up, you get to choose which partner gets to share in the profits. You can learn more at parkpower.ca.
All right. Thank you for your wins and fails. Really appreciate that. And we're going to just go right into our main topic now. We're going to talk about personal PD and just how we improve our own professional practice outside of, I guess, environs or moments like this, because this is very much, sort of the traditional PD setting. So in traditional me fashion, the reason I have you here is so I don't have to do any work. So I'm just going to throw it out to you three gents. Wow. What do you... Wow. So what do you do, or what do you do to actually get better at what you do?
Shaun?
Yes. I don't think we should start with me. I think, this one I've been thinking about because normally when we show up to the podcast, we have about 5 minutes to think about it and then we kind of cruise with it, which I so appreciate because I like that off the cuff stuff, but I actually had time to think about this in the shower this morning. Where you do your best thinking. I actually, so PD has a couple of names. I think we all have the same sort of connotations with PD. It's either, and you've mentioned them already, so I hope I can mention them on here. It feels like sometimes when we have too much, it feels useless. But when we have too little, I can speak to that. So in my area of teaching, there is none. So it's mostly me.
Like you're talking like when you go to sessions, like to conferences.
Very little.
Yeah.
So I would love to walk into a session where somebody's presenting on something. So I can speak to that end of the spectrum where I think sometimes we take it for granted. Even a conversation in our staff room 2 days ago was from a guy who said, "You guys are taking a break again?" And I kind of thought, it's not really a break. Like we actually interact with these kids on a daily basis. We see them 8 hours a day. We walk through this stuff. I think we should probably have some infilling too. And so I speak as one who doesn't have a lot of PD opportunities, and you can get very jaded. And sometimes I'm sarcastic. Or often.
Only when you're awake.
Yeah, it's my gift. That space though, actually being able to create PD, and I think it was one of you guys actually when we used to go to our PDs together. It was, wow, nothing is offered. And in fact, there was one on basket weaving, which I thought...
Actually?
No, Basket Weaving 101 was what it was actually called. And I thought, there's no way on earth.
I'm so sad I missed that.
Yeah, maybe this is me being cynical, but I didn't take it. It also didn't improve my practice at all. On the other hand, though, these guys challenged me and said, well, if there's nothing available, why don't you start one? And so I've been doing that ever since.
Basket weaving?
So it's the only class I teach. But actually just informing on that, but I would still say on the loan end of the spectrum, it's hugely important. And when I find it, I'm the desperate kid on the playground going, there's a friend, let's go get him. And then you cling to him and they try and escape you. But they never do. So how's that for teaching practice?
Well, yeah, I'll echo what Shaun said. Teaching high school art, there's very limited PD. And so one approach definitely, teach a session because it's so needed. But I think even just get together with other teachers who are teaching what you teach. The professional development that can happen when you just talk about what are you doing, that's huge, because then the conversation is directly related to exactly what you need in your classroom. Yeah. Or when you go to a session, it can be hit or miss, right? You might think it's going to be this thing, but it ends up being a different thing. So make your own PD, right?
I think can I just mention too from your guys' comments, sometimes I think the best PD that we actually have is the reflection time. So you wake up this morning, you fight with traffic. You're actually quite okay fighting with traffic to get here. And then you take a half an hour to do parking like I did. And the whole time you're like, this is really good. Like, I actually don't mind. I'm not swearing at anyone. I'm not getting overly frustrated with other people who are cutting me off in traffic. And in fact, I tried 2 parking spots before I found one a mile out of the city kind of thing. And you kind of go, I'm okay with this because I've been able to think about what I'm doing. I have people in the van. We're collaborating again. So if that counts as PD, I think just that mental space of going, oh, I can breathe for a second. There's not the avalanche that we're waiting for. I can sidestep that and kind of walk away.
I'm curious, just because we do have a live audience. I mean, how many, I promise I won't name names, but how many of you have, like, during a conference engaged in personal PD that has sort of made your own session on the side?
You're getting fired.
Okay. Again, not naming names, but a lot of hands went up. Yeah, and I wonder, like, you're talking about, like, the personal PD thing and you having to set things up on your own time. I wonder if there's any way we can start to normalize that in the actual profession, because we always have to do it, on the sly. When I started my film studies class, it took, and I combined it with Jeremy's class before he left.
Brutal.
It took us 2 years before we actually pulled the trigger to set it up, because we had to find time on our own amidst busy family life and professional careers and everything else to actually figure out how the 2 courses actually mesh together. And I distinctly remember, doing personal PD over at Sherlock Holmes one year. It was great, and we got a ton done.
Yeah.
But I just wonder, how we can, make that. I mean, accountability is such a key issue, I guess, right? Because I imagine that there may be some people who do personal PD whose personal PD might just be not what others might view as beneficial. So
I think, just to go off that, Shane, we have a pretty rigid view of PD, or if we do, we move into that dialogue where it's like I have the cup is full, and you're going to conference to get something, and you're like, but I'm done. Like, there's no more time, there's no more energy, there's nothing left. So we see it as or can see it as an add-on, and it's something else that we need to take care of. And in our professions, there's always more than enough. There's never areas usually of boredom, of I wonder what I'm going to start next. It's just, how do I manage this? So the older cliche is like, well, it's not doing more, it's doing things differently. And you're like, yeah, but I don't know how to do this any differently. And so we get stuck in that paradigm. And so you start coming to a conference, and you're like, almost that cynicism that's just like, I'm going to go pick a session that's going to give me maybe a tip on Monday, maybe something. Because if I go for something bigger, there's going to be bigger changes, and I'm not up for it. And if we go with that, then, convention becomes another, an ask of us. It's like, I'm going there, and it's hard to move into a profound space. Instead, it's like, it's just people are going to tell me that I should be doing more and doing it better. If PD can be collaboration, the PLC kind of idea of these professional learning communities, like at Sherlock Holmes, they run one at times.
Yeah.
We had so much done that time, and dreamed and started filling out like tasks and how we were going to do it throughout the year. And that springboarded about 6 months of work. Like, to actually have that time. And you think, well, was that professional development? It's like, well, it was more than just tasks. It was, how do we want to do this? What's the best practice? What do we want our students to think? What are the outcomes? And it was fantastic. So if we don't see that as PD, then all we're left with is this ask of more and more from us instead. When professional development can mean a podcast you like. So the general, how you feel about that podcast then is like, so how do I feel about the learning? How do my students feel about the learning? How do I communicate back, or how do I get communicated to? Those are, so it's like listening to serial can be like really good PD
really good.
for your grade 6 classroom. If you're, and I say it that way because we said that earlier, but it's because of how are you interacting with the information, and how can you then think, well, that actually affected me and I actually got interested. What happened in there that I want to duplicate for my students? So even listening to your own personal things can be PD if we look at them differently instead of the more.
Can I be scandalous for a moment?
Oh, please do.
Okay. I think what we're kind of going through is PD becomes this information dump. We're in a paradigm of information dump. If you're not dumping it, you're getting dumped on. Wow,
Can somebody tweet that?
that's a tagline for a new company.
Just tweet that from this session right now.
Yeah, perfect.
That's
If you're
the
not-
quote for the
If you're not
episode
dumping,
poster.
you're getting dumped on.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
Shaun Smith.
Yeah, good. 2019. What I actually think, and this is a huge paradigm. I used to work for a company where it was mandated. You actually got written up if you didn't do it, where you would take 1 hour of the day. And so they were high-level programmers and a few creative types, and then writers, which I was part of the writing team. And you still had to make your deadlines. So 3 o'clock deadline was when your article came out. They brought in Samsung to study our company. So one of the big guys at Samsung, and he came in and he said, here's how you're going to be more productive. So I've also equally been at a teacher session where the first question asked at a PD was, how do we get our students to be more productive in the day? And the comment was, if you can get them active, and I know this is like traditional paradigm sort of thinking, if you can get them going in the first 30 seconds, then and then they did the math. In the year, you've got 200 more minutes because they're in that first 30 seconds. And I thought, so we don't all have coffee here, but we're a pretty caffeinated culture. It's just go, 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 go. And to the point of exhaustion. So I think we're actually creating some kind of space for ourselves where when we have these personal PD times, how many of us have actually walked into a room where the kids love us? We don't even see it anymore because we're so busy going, not just curriculum based, but we're so busy saying, maybe they didn't like it. Maybe they're not engaged enough. I had that one parent that one time 4 years ago who said that one thing, and I still hear them in my head. I think the personal PD, and I've had same experiences with you guys, where personal PD became, we're talking, and we're not, and yes, there is some appreciation for what I would term soul space. Mm-hmm. So when that Samsung guy came in, he said, here's how you be 30% more productive throughout the day. You're going to mandate 1 hour off, not just an hour at random, like at the end of the day, you can kind of put on your boots and take your time doing it. You're going to give the most productive hour of your day to nothing. And so we had to do, you all are going to want to work for this company at the end, but 1 hour of foosball, not hidden off in some weird place where all the weird kids go. In the middle of the building, they built a foosball room on an elevated stage. You have to. If you work on work at that point in time, you will be written up and you're deducted pay. The other option, equally as bad, so I was terrible at foosball compared to the guys who were there for years. You had to go to the massage therapist room. There were two. Why am I working?
Yeah. Why are you a teacher?
Let's not talk about past mistakes. It was actually a room that they had designated where massage chairs, 2 massage therapists on call at all times, especially at this time of day, river running at your feet. I know, I'm not sure why I'm here. And what they said is this does not make our employees more lazy. You're actually going to get more productivity out of it. Think of it like McDonald's. I always contrast with that. At the end of an 8-hour shift at McDonald's, you get 15 minutes off. Sorry if McDonald's is a sponsor. They're not anymore.
Nor is Justin Bieber, and probably not ATB either. I don't know.
Yeah, perfect. But they actually had a space. So they did a study of McDonald's as well, and the amount of productivity at the end of a shift. And you can see that. Go to McDonald's. You see the kid on the till, and they're like, hamburger, yes. and it's very much less productive.
Well,
so to actually have that space makes us better.
As a teacher, we see that. We teach block 4.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Block
Totally.
4 Friday, right?
yeah.
Yeah. But to actually have the space built into our classrooms too, to model that to our kids, they will take advantage of it all the time. When I first put this into my classroom, and I know we're talking about PD, one of the kids came up to me when he misunderstood and he said, "I love when we do nothing." And I kind of went, "You don't get it yet. And maybe you never will." But the first 5 minutes all of a sudden fostered an environment where we could talk about something much better than what happened in 1854. So it was something a little different than that.
I'm going to go off that too, of just that phrase that keeps going to my head when I'm listening to you, of the culture of scarcity. And I heard it said that we go to bed thinking that we didn't get enough done, and we get up in the morning thinking we didn't get enough sleep. And when we live in that culture of scarcity, we're, and rightfully so, not ready to move into a vulnerable space like learning. Yeah. So to be more creative, it costs us risk. So the idea of vulnerability. And we're in this culture of scarcity where we're thinking, I have to just protect. I have to protect this. I got to get these. And the world gets tunneled in. And that hour off just allows you to slowly let down the walls again and just breathe. And we try to add on more when we're in that culture of scarcity, and it just runs. It's like an engine without oil. It's whatever analogy you want. It's like you're running it into the ground, and taking that hour to come back. Think about Google with the 20-minute projects, or nap rooms, or different things that businesses are bringing in. Well, they're bringing it in because it's actually more productive. But what they're doing is letting people breathe and find their feet again and take risk and be vulnerable. And when we go into there, then some of that, well, the more deeper learning can take place.
So are we proposing then that teacher conferences should just be like all massages and...
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can stop there.
Let's start now. Yeah, there you go. That was organic. That was organic clapping. Well, did we just get you in trouble for saying, because we have that paradigm, but if we're fear-based culture, then we say we've got to give all the indicators of still being productive while we're here.
Yeah.
Find someone you know.
Well, what you're talking about is redefining productivity, I think, right?
Yeah.
I mean, professional development is about increasing, I think is about increasing our productivity, our abilities as educators. So if, the stuff that you're talking about, like maybe an hour of foosball or whatever, if that's productive, if it boosts productivity, I mean, that would be something you'd hope that, the powers that be could get behind.
Is that the end game, though?
Foosball?
No, productivity. Well, foosball is yes. But the whole productivity, is that the end game? And I know this is like, okay, this is very fairy. Like, what do you do in your...
you gotta figure, well, what's productivity? Productivity, like, is that higher marks on diplomas, or is that a higher quality relationship with your students, or is it their ability to think critically? Is it, how much hair loss you experience in a year? What is productivity?
Right.
So I don't know, from our two little soul guides here, Jeremy and Shaun, I think we'd say that productivity has something to do with like internal wellness or something.
Yeah.
I'm not versed in the vocabulary well enough.
Let us dance.
Yeah. When I define what we do, I think you can go in really general terms that starts capturing all of us, counselors, teachers, any way that we have a role within education is movement. We're moving our students towards something, towards change, towards wellness, towards skills. And that movement takes place when we can encourage them to move. And if you were here before, we start to, I'm going to bring it in now.
Do it.
Yeah, the elephant and the rider.
Yes.
So they're mocking me because that's one of my favorite metaphors. And I was looking it up this morning. It was on my iPad screen. So doing the mic checks, you could hear all of the banter about the elephant and the rider. The truth, this metaphor has to do with, like, I guess in a neuroscientific kind of way, our limbic system, or emotional, where the instinctive drives are, that's the elephant, very powerful. And that's where movement comes from. In the rider's the cortex, or the rational decision-making planning. And it's a very precarious relationship between the rider and the elephant. The rider thinks that they're in charge, and at any time, the elephant can go in another direction, stop. 6 tons of animal. So the relationship between here is, another way to divide that out is the conscious and the subconscious. So it's telling the elephant a really good story. And if you can tell the elephant a really good story, then the elephant will want to move. And if it starts to move, the rider and the elephant move together. Planning ahead and looking at productivity percentages probably isn't going to sell the elephant. selling the elephant is going to be what matters in my life, what kind of profound change can I make with other students, with colleagues, with my life. We start talking about, like, this is for ourselves. We tell the story to the elephant, and all of a sudden, like, we want to be in a mode where we could learn, where we could make a difference. But it has to be a good story. Now, the elephant likes stories, but the rider doesn't really have enough time for it. But if we make time and realize that we need to tell good stories to ourselves, then PD starts to become, that's when I want to get up. That's when I want to stay up late. That's when I want to drive to another location far away to take good PD. I think about some of the best sessions I've been at. And I think about Romeo Dolares with Shaking Hands with the Devil. I think that was 4 or 5 years ago. I can't even remember, but just stood out. Stephen Lewis with UNICEF. Samantha or Stephanie, I think it's Samantha, not with War Child.
Yeah.
There's these and they had nothing that I could use on Monday, but they were amazing. There was amazing sessions that changed who I was and like really profoundly impacted me. And that was the story. That's the story. It's like, I liked going to convention. I thought about it days afterwards, and I didn't think, well, how am I going to bring War Child into my social studies on Monday? It still needed time to sink all the way in, but it changed me and I would say made me a better educator, made me better connecting with students. So the idea of telling a good story to our subconscious or to our instinctive motive, like that's good PD. That whatever can do that and move that, then we start, like I said before, the goal of us is movement, moving our students, moving us towards better communities, learning, wellness, etc.
Well, I think part of it too is then thinking about, okay, well, what motivates us, and in turn, what motivates our students. One of the things that I've done this year that I think is, I don't know if you would call it PD, but I was able to humble myself and say, at the very beginning of the year, things were not going well the first few days. And I was like, what is going on? What can I do to right this ship? And, often we think this is for the students, we need to motivate them, but we don't actually get their input. And so for me to kind of humble myself and say, all right, guys, like, what would you like to do? What kinds of things do you like? I'm fortunate I teach art, so there's a lot of flexibility, but what kinds of projects did you like in the past? What things did you see that other students did that you would like to do? What things don't you like? What projects did you hate? And I think in the past, I would have been too proud to do that. And I would have thought, no, I'm in control of this ship, so I'm not going to consult you. But to get the feedback from the students, it was really good PD in that, wow, these are the things they like, these are the things they don't like. But also to see the ownership that then they had, where it was like, we had a say. He listened to us, and now we're doing things that we had direct input in. So I don't think PD has to always exist outside of the classroom, right? It can be in the classroom getting feedback, but it takes that humility to be able to do it.
Yeah, and a certain fortitude, because you know that
yeah.
you're going to get kids are pretty unvarnished.
You do have to take it with a grain of salt too, right?
Like, you suck.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to do paper mache all year long, okay? So don't, right? But
That's
yeah.
Jer, I'm hung up on this detail because I was the one mocking you about the elephant.
Okay.
You said 6 tons. Did you say 6 tons? If you play it back, Shane.
He said 6 tons.
6 tons. The average African bush elephant.
I'm not talking about an African bush elephant.
Oh, you're not? No, you are. You really want to. Is 6 tons. So either you did some incredible research.
No, he said he wasn't, so it doesn't
He
count.
said he wasn't.
Okay.
So
He's not prepared for
Okay,
that.
well, the average, were you talking about the African forest elephant? 2.7 tons. So that's different. I just wanted to correct you on your facts. I thought that was important.
Okay, I think we've crash landed on this topic. I think we're good. Well done. That got a lot more like touchy-feely than I anticipated, but I should know better by now. All right. Well, we're gonna move ahead to our last segment now. We're gonna talk about our timeouts. So timeouts it's just something in the past month that has given you a break from teaching. So it can be a book you've read or a movie you've seen, or it can just be an experience you've had, but just something that has given you, a step away from all this other teachy stuff. So I'd love to open up to the audience for this one too, if you have anything. But again, we'll lead by example, we'll model, and then if anyone else wants to share one, they can. So I'm going to go first because speaking of like weird touchy-feely and timeless kind of stuff, I did a float this month. So
I wanted to do
my
that.
daughter had a
Yeah.
preschool fundraiser, and so there's a float there, and I bought one. It's like where you go in like one of those like shell enclosed bathtub things that are full of like salt water, and they're completely dark. and you float. And I don't float in water, so it's really cool being this like water that I'm actually floating in. And then you just sit there in complete darkness for 90 minutes. And it was really cool. It was really cool. Like at first I wasn't sure, but I mean, for the first 15 minutes, I have two very young kids. So the first 15 minutes, I could see very vivid reconstructions of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, like floating in front of my eyes. Like,
What kind of float was this?
And but after that, it was really cool. You kind of go through different phases where your brain's just like bugging out, and then you kind of calm down, and you kind of lose that barrier between awake and asleep, and you're not sure whether you're dreaming or. And it's really cool. So I enjoyed that, and it was just a really nice time out. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go in order then. I remember when we first started doing these check-ins long ago with the history of the Ed podcast, and you'd get to that point, you're like, I didn't do anything really. And you just start to realize after you say that out loud, you're like, I'm not taking any time. I'm not taking time out for myself. And then, you're going to be on the next week or the next month. That's kind of what it was. And you're like, I gotta find a time out. And it just really see like a bankruptcy, like self-care. And you're like, okay, how do I? So then some of them were like, playing with kids or driving quietly in the car. And all those are good. And those are big ones for me. This one that I'll share is making wine. So down in my basement, I've made out of wood and hands and actually tangible.
You made it out of hands?
Okay.
You don't want that wine.
I'm not letting anything go here. He's fact checking your elephant weights. I'm going to check on your
That's a good
wine.
call.
So it's all
skills.
rough and it's all made, and the whole wine takes a long time to make, especially like it's about 45 days for the process, but then you have these levels that you're storing for time, and all of it is a slow process for me. So going down there and just seeing that it's in this glass carboy and it's not ready, and it's a slow breathing. So I really like making it. I really like drinking it as well, but that's not a good time. That's a maladaptive coping strategy. But that's part of the plus. But the making it is what I'm referring to as the timeout. It's really, really good.
Well, I have twin 9-month-old girls at home, so sitting in silence for an hour is my timeout. No,
That's legit.
yeah. No, actually, I took we have a 9-year-old son, and like I love movies. I'm a huge movie buff, but the superhero movies, lately they've been decent. So I took him to see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and
I heard that's really good.
it was amazing. Best superhero movie I've ever seen.
What?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I'm with
It
you.
is.
Wow.
It's like watching a comic book come to life. And that to me is the way that all superhero movies should be made. So if you haven't seen it, you gotta. It's amazing.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
I think when you say bankruptcy, I think that's where I'm kind of at in terms of timeouts. But I think
Because you've already used snowboarding, so you're
well, I mean, much of it is snowboarding, and one of the best expenditures I've ever spent is getting my family a season pass, and we just go, and it's like I'm away from my phone because it doesn't last in minus 20-degree weather. But actually, away from that one is a huge part. I have taken to partly the winemaking as well. But let me go back to snowboarding. That space, so we drive 20 minutes to the hill, and in that time I get to hang out with my daughter, who is fantastic, and it's just this really cool time where we're just together. So I do a lot of that, especially with a daughter in club volleyball. You kind of go, hey, this is my 20 minutes with you. And so we get to go, we get to escape everything. We're in the van, so there's no way we can actually communicate with the outside world. Turn off the phone. I think that's the cliche. I think the best timeouts that I've had, though, and I've been surprised by it, so I think it is an actual indicator of health, is where I will turn on music, particularly really moving, sort of sleeping at last kind of music. And then that's a band, and that's a bit of a plug. It's if you want some really good space that way. And then I because I'm not going to go outside in this kind of weather, I sound like a millennial at this point. I turn on my big screen computer with the stars. That's been one of the things that I did. Close the door in my office upstairs, and this is really funny because you can imagine how sad this scene looks. But I'm all of a sudden I'm in tears as I'm looking at the stars, listening to "Sleeping at Last." I'm
Is this like the old the Windows 98 screensaver, like the
yeah. No, it's not that sad. But actually the space to sit there for more than a half an hour and go, it's fantastic. Like let the music call me out a little bit more and go, I'm bigger than Monday to Friday, bigger than that grade that kid got or that tough conversation that I had. I'm made for much more than this too. I think that's what we need as PD. I think that's when we talk about struggles of whether it be admin or wherever, it's still that space to come back and go, I'm okay. Like your scarcity comment, I'm okay. I'm enough. And I don't think we have that enough in our practice, in our teaching practice. That's the space that I would go.
Right on.
Nice.
Right on. So before we sign out, is anyone who wants to share a timeout, something that's given you a bit of break over the past month? And you don't have to. It's all good. Oh, in the back. Awesome.
Hi. So timeouts this time of year for me are pretty hard to come by. I'm a basketball coach on top of junior high teaching.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. But with the cold this past week, unfortunately with busing, the games haven't been able to work out. And the other day, I had some time and I was on Amazon Prime wandering around. And I found Unsolved Mysteries. Do you guys remember that show?
Whoa, with Robert Stack.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it for like 25 years. And I just started watching it and I was like, wait, this is just like when I was like 5 watching with my parents. It was so nice just to chill out and think about how like the sounds of that song and all the sound effects they used. So cheesy. But it was like, all those memories and feelings. It was cool.
Yeah, and Robert Stack's voice is just the best.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Well, we did it. We did a live podcast. Hooray.
Do we cheer?
We can cheer? Yeah, sure. All right. Well, that concludes our podcast. Thank you so much for coming. This has been really heartening just to have so many people here and hanging out with us. It's been fun. Let's do it again sometime.
Next week.
Thank you very much. We're
Enjoy
done.
convention. See everyone.
And a huge shout out's got to go out to the Alberta Podcast Network. They are really the ones who supported us through this, helping us make this happen. They got us a great venue. They got us an audience. They catered it. It was fantastic. So more than usual, it seems like this episode is truly brought to you by the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Don't forget, there's a ton of other podcasts in the Alberta Podcast Network, all made right here in Alberta. You can find them all at albertapodcastnetwork.com. And if you want to get in touch or you'd like to be a guest on this show, you can email me at theedpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Twitter at theedpodcast. If you'd like to listen to more of Ed, you can head over to the website, theedpodcast.podme.com, or find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcatcher of your choice. Just search up Ed Conversations. Ed can also be heard on Voice Ed Radio. It's 24-hour internet broadcasting devoted to the best ideas in education. Just head over to voiced.ca. So on behalf of myself and Jeremy and Joe and Shaun and all the people who came to our show, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.